Hi, everyone. John Michael Coppola here, and welcome to the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast, where we chat with the actors, directors, choreographers, designers, producers, music directors, lyricists, playwrights, and all the artists who make the Chicago area theaters come alive. We're so excited to have you here with us today. But before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like, subscribe to, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who you think would appreciate the conversations we're having. We'd be so grateful for your support in this way so we can continue to bring these stories for years to come. Thanks again for being here. And now, curtain up on today's episode. On today's episode, we're joined by company members from HGBIC Productions' upcoming world premiere of The Greatest Night in Show Business, a new musical play about Judy Garland and the night of her Carnegie Hall concert. Producer, writer, and director of the piece, Mikey Duran, was born and raised in Chicago, studied acting at the Academy of Art University of San Francisco, attended Illinois Media School, and hosted the LGBT radio show Pride of the Shy from 2018 to 2020. His first production, Happy Birthday, Mr. President, premiered in March of 2025. Lisa Lindquist was a child print ad model and appeared in several commercials until the age of 18. She then took time off to attend college and start a family and is now back on the boards starring as Judy Garland in this production. She and Mikey have also been best friends since childhood. We talk about all this and more on today's conversation with Mikey Duran and Lisa Lindquist. Now let's go to the top of the show. Hi, Mikey. Hi, Lisa. How are you both doing today?
We're doing good. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. We're doing great.
Well, thank you for joining me here on the podcast. I appreciate it. So listen, as is our custom here, we always like to ask our guests the very same question at the top of the show, and that is to please each of you tell our listeners a bit about where you grew up, a little bit about your background and training, and most importantly, please finish with your first theater experience. So Lisa, why don't we start with you? Ladies first.
Okay, great. I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and I'm still there. So, but yeah, just a suburbanite. I grew up with three older brothers. My parents, they're still together. They're the best. They're wonderful. And I just had a really good and charmed childhood. And as far as my first theater experience, I think it started when I was younger. I used to do some like modeling and acting in Chicago. So I did like JCPenney catalogs and like some T-Mobile ads. And my brother Mark also did them. But my biggest passion was singing. I loved to sing. So I started taking vocal lessons from a very young age. I did like Mommy and Me lessons for a little while, and then did individual ones through a company. And then my brother Mark, he actually wanted to do a musical. So he did, I think it was The Secret Garden was his first one. And I went to go see it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this too. So the next show was The Music Man. And my mom signed me up for that. And the rest was history.
Did you have any training? Did you go to school for this? Did you just learn by doing the community theater, which is a big way I was trained growing up? I'm curious what your training was like.
Yeah, so I actually did have a lot of training. So I did a lot of vocal lessons. I started vocal lessons at a very young age. Like I said, starting with like Mommy and Me classes when I was like 5. And then I started doing individual lessons, and I did those up until I was around 18. So I was more classically trained for a majority of my life as far as my vocals. But once I did sign up I believe that I did The Music Man when I was around 7. I was like 7 years old. And so when I did that show, I continued my vocal lessons, but then I started doing acting classes as well. So every Saturday morning, a majority of my childhood was just, we wake up, we go to acting class, we have a voice lesson in between that, and then we go to play practice. And I did so many plays throughout all of my childhood. And then once I got to high school, I started doing the high school productions primarily. And then I did go to Illinois State for theater.
You skipped over all of that. If I hadn't asked you, you would have just gone from childhood right to adulthood. That's the stuff we want to hear on the podcast. You studied privately then as a kid. Voice and acting was all private until you went to college. And what's the northwest suburb, if you don't mind me asking?
Lombard is where I grew up. I eventually moved over to the Wheaton area, and now I'm in Warrenville right next door.
Okay. And now is your brother still in the arts, or did he say no more?
Oh, no, my brother is still in the arts, and he's actually also in this production with me.
I'll have fun. And are you the only two in the arts in your family?
My brother Jake, actually, he went to UIC for acting as well. But he has a family. He kind of moved away from that. He works, I believe, more in law now. But my brother Alex was a film major in college as well.
It's super fun that I love it when there's like a family connection and it's not just the one outlier that goes and wants to do the creative arts thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, I find it's always sort of a fun family pastime, if you will, when you're growing up, when you can all sort of do it together. And then, as you become adults, you sort of find your own niches and maybe some go beyond creative pursuits and some stick with it. And we're going to get to childhood and then a little bit of the hiatus and then you came back to it. So we're going to get back to that a little bit later in the episode. But for now, Mikey, you're on deck. Come on up to that. What would you like to tell us about your background? And of course, don't forget your first theater experience at the very end.
Well, I don't know if I can follow that. I was just thinking when she said about her family, I was like, we did kind of call them in Lombard the Barrymores of Lombard because they were just an entire family of like actors. And we were like, if you did a show with a Lindquist, you were like, oh my God. Like, okay. But like, that's just how great their family is. I was born and raised in Chicago and I kind of consider myself a gypsy. Because we moved around a lot when I was a kid. My mom, I was raised by a single parent. My mom, though, was a dancer. So she kind of it kind of skipped a few kids. I'm the middle of five. So it skipped a few kids and then the talent went to me. I guess, as she said, the theater talent went to me. My first experience with, I guess, the world of acting really was when I was in fifth grade and the lyric opera used to tour around like schools and put on shows for the little grade school for all the grade schools. So all the grade schools in the county would go out to one high school and it was Addison Trail and they would in Addison, Illinois. And they would we'd go to that school and we'd watch it. And the first show I watched was The Barber of Seville. And that made me, I was like, oh, I like this. I like this. But it was actually what made me want to do it, which is kind of, I guess, the juxtaposition of this show that we're doing now is I was 8 years old and I was just scrolling through channels late at night it was summertime. And I came across TCM. And the movie that they were showing was For Me and My Gal. And Judy Garland was singing the song with Gene Kelly, and I just kept watching it. I was like, oh, and it was in a black and white. You like what 8-year-old wants to watch a black and white? But I was like obsessed with her voice. Like it was just right when she started singing, and I was like, ooh. So that made me want to be like, okay, I think I might want to do that. I want to do that, and theater was it started in middle school, but then it really took off in high school. If it wasn't mentioned, me and Lisa, we went to the same high school. So
and middle school.
So we've known each other all our lives pretty much. And I was just and the first show we did was Hamlet, and then my first lead was in a chorus line. And and that was like that really taught me the grind of theater. I know we had to do like stuff like we had to do costumes, we had to do props, scenery, you name it, we had to do it. So that was really like my education right there. And then I ended up going to the Academy of Art University right after college and a lot of other schools. I was a schoolie in my 20s. I went to a lot of schools and learned stuff, but led me here to where I'm now writing and producing my own stuff.
kudos to you, because that is, in my view, one of the best ways to be working is to create your own things. I mean, there's lots of opportunities out there, and there's only so many jobs, and there's only so many people to fill those jobs. And, if you got yourself a little bit of time in your hands, you write and produce your own things, or create a podcast, as it were, right? That's how I really developed this thing. I went through a job transition that ended in June, and I sort of had a long runway, knew it was coming to an end. And I was like, what am I going to do with my time? And it inspired me. I was like, Chicago doesn't have a podcast about the theater community. Maybe I should be the one to start one. And here's where we are today. No end in sight. It's been really getting a lot of wonderful feedback. And I don't say any of that to, put a feather in my cap, but that's
Oh no, put the feather in your cap.
You deserve the feather in your cap.
No, thank you. I mean, but really, it's like you have to sometimes chart your own path to make your own work happen and to become a success. So bravo to you for doing that. I give you a lot of credit.
Thank you.
You told us about you've got some family that's in the arts, and your dad's your mother, of course, Mikey, and Lisa, your entire family. But was there any one person that was a true inspiration or an influential person in your life?
I would definitely say my mother. My mother is literally, I mean, if I could be half the woman she is, I will die happy. She has always watered every seed of my passion. She did all of the drop-offs and pickups and signing me up for the classes. I mean, my mom always was there from the very beginning, and she was so encouraging and kind and always wanted me to go. Like, it was crazy. I had a lot of friends that I did theater with, and all of their parents would say, you can't go to school for theater. You can't do this because that's not a career. That's not a this. You can do this on your own. You know what I mean? And my mom, 100% with me and all of my siblings, was on board, this is what you love. You are fabulous at it, and I'm going to be there every step of the way, whether it crashes and burns or whether it's amazing. And so I think my mom and she continues to be an amazing support to me. So she's definitely probably just as a person, as a mother, as encouraging woman, just like everything about her, I would say she's the best.
That's wonderful to hear. How about you, Mikey? Is it your mom? Because she was a dancer. She understood your passion, but was there anybody else?
It really was, I want to say, my mom. She was the one who, when she first, I guess, heard me sing, she knew, like, okay, that's what he's going to be into. Because she used to try to find things that we were all into. Like, I know I did Taekwondo, hated it. She tried to get me into that. I was like, hate this.
Oh my God, I can't imagine doing it. I'm sorry.
Like my little brother, he was good at it. I was like, he was in it, and I was just like, like. But then she really nurtured that in me. And so I guess it really is our moms, which is sort of which is the thing I think why me and her are so close, because we actually grew up with each other's mothers.
Yes.
So we grew up with each other's moms being very encouraging, being there at every show.
Oh yeah.
So it was, so it really is the moms. Like, so.
Oh yeah. And they were both extremely influential, like, to both of us. Like, Michael was a part of my family and vice versa. Like, he could just walk into my house. I could just walk into his house. It was like, hey, Mom, and go in the fridge, like, we were very intertwined, and both of our moms were just blessings.
Yay to the moms.
Yes,
give it up for the moms. Yes. Yes, 1,000%. Now, Mikey, I do want to talk to you about some of your past projects. You used to have a radio show called Pride of the Shy, and you also had a previous production, Happy Birthday, Mr. President. So I want to hear a little bit about each. You could start off with whichever was first, of course. I think it was Pride of the Shy. And then, I'm curious what inspired you to launch each of them.
Oh, that's a good question. What really, I guess I would say, inspired me with Pride of the Shy was I went to Illinois Media School, right off of State Street. So I went there, and I found, like, as I think I already knew to myself, I was like, I have a gift for gab. So I could talk and just, do things and just, keep conversation. Um, I had friends who were like, "Oh, radio show, podcasting, that's so easy." I'm like, it was, I told people, I'm like, you have to be a personality and keep the energy up from the time you start to the very time it ends. And you as the host have to make sure that it's all controlled and you keep the environment where it is. So I was very into that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Preaching to the choir here.
Preaching to the choir. So I was like, I did that for a couple of years, and I made that show really because there was no show for the LGBT community, mainly though LGBTQI artists in Chicago. They weren't getting invited to go on any of the other radio shows. They weren't. They had to. They couldn't get in the door. My show kind of was like, hey, we're all queer community creatives. Here's a platform where we can do this at. And so I did it for about a good couple of years. And then I went into podcasting because the show actually ended when COVID started. So I kind of couldn't go back to the studio. And so then I kind of went and moved and did podcasting, which then led me to being like, okay, I'm tired of talking to people about stuff. And I guess the theater in me was always there. I guess I kind of just put it in a little box somewhere. But by 2021, it kind of popped. Yeah, it was like me when I came out of the closet. It just popped out and said, "Hi, I'm here." So, like, "Hello, world." And then so I said, "Okay, it's we're recovering from a pandemic. How do I do this thing?" And so I ended up writing a radio drama, scripted. And it went for 5 episodes, and I did another one, which was titled Happy Birthday, Mr. President. Did that as a radio show podcast. It did okay. And then I sat on it for, a couple of years. Last year, just last year, a friend of mine, he read the script and he was like, he's like, why is this not on stage? And I was like, I don't know. Uh, next thing you know, he tells me, someone named Eva, shout out to Eva Lefeva from the Newport Theater, she's going to get in contact with you. You're going to stage this. And I was like, all right, we're doing this. And I did that show, and that show was about Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy. So my style of writing the shows that I have written so far has always been like I like to look at very pop culture moments, but I always go, what happened right before that? Like what was that? What was right before and what happened after it? Like there's certain like little moments where you're like, wait, there something had to happen during this little period, either after this or leading up to it. So
Yeah.
so I said after she sung Happy Birthday to him in the very provocative way she did it, JFK must have been like, you know, sweating bullets, like going, like, what the heck? And so I wrote the show about them meeting at the Waldorf Astoria after this and them just having their own like conversation and, about the affair, but also about their own lives and things I think people that I did a lot of research on that I don't think people really knew. So that show was my first starting show and it was surprisingly a hit. We sold out both nights we did it, and I was so shocked. I was like, "Okay, I can start rooting into this, doing this." So and then like literally while I was doing that show, I wrote my next show, which was about Josephine Baker. So I wrote that show.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote that.
What was that one called?
It was called Josephine. So nobody
Okay.
was really familiar with Josephine Baker, and that she really was like the first Black superstar before Beyonce, before Diana Ross. She was
Right.
the first, and we did that show. That show closed in August, so um, that was that was a bigger cast. So that was my first time doing a bigger cast. We had our issues, we had our situations, but I looked at everything like, okay, this is the learning experience, which is how
Yeah.
you have to approach it. I couldn't approach it in the terms of, if it's not a hit, I never want to do this again. I'm like, no, what went wrong? What can you do right for the next one? But like with the other show, when I was in mid-production for that one, I was writing this show. So I, for me, I get an idea and I'm like, run home and I'm like, okay, you got to write it out. And then next, I've written like the first half of a draft of the script already. So that's my process, which everybody's like, you're crazy. So, and it's funny right now in this show, I'm writing the next show. So it's weird. It's real. And I don't intend to do it. I don't plan on doing it. It's like I get an idea when I'm in rehearsal and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And then I just go home and then suddenly I'm writing out a full script. And so it's a weird process. I can't explain it. It just happens, unfortunately.
Well, I'm glad that it comes so easy to you because lots of artists and writers can't write that easily and the ideas don't come that quickly. So maybe your inspiration is you've got to be in production of one show to start writing the next one. And two excellent anecdotes I want to attach onto that. So one of our first guests on the podcast here was a writer here in town, James Sherman, who was most famous for his play Bojest. And during our conversation, he said he had met one of his writing heroes, Alan Ayckbourn, and he had a whole conversation with him about the play he was doing at the time. And Mr. Ayckbourn said to James, well, you must finish this play because if you don't finish this one, then you can't write the next one. And so that's James's process. He only works on one project at a time and he finishes it to completion so that he can start the next project. So that's the way he works. And then I've got a buddy from high school, not theater related, but he is a world-renowned fantasy novelist now. His name is Peter Brett, Brett. His very first novel was called The Warded Man, Warded. And when it became a hit, this article about his writing process was published. And at the time, before he became a full-time writer, he was working a job. I'm not sure what the name of the actual job is, but basically, when you get a prescription and there's all what I like to call the liner notes on the inside about, how to take it and any side effects, all the little jargon that's in there. His job was to write that stuff. Oh. And his job was a 9 to 5, and he would hop on the subway every morning on his BlackBerry. That's how long ago this was in the early 2000s, and write the novel with his thumbs on his BlackBerry. That is how he wrote his novel. And when he got writer's block, he would get on the subway because that was how his body and his brain learned to be productive, to write the novel. And it's now a worldwide hit. It's got all sorts of sequels to it. But I always, everyone's got their thing to get the creative juices flowing for them. So your thing is you're producing the show and you're writing the other one while you're producing the one. And I think that's fantastic that you found your way of doing the thing. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it. I hope no one else has discouraged you from doing it that way if it works for you.
No, I find it funny because I think of my mother. My mother's like, she tells me, she's like, sometimes you're hard-headed. Like she's like, nobody can tell me. And then again, I'm also a Scorpio, so we don't take kindly to.
I'm a Scorpio. What's your birthday?
November 1st.
November 12th. November Scorpios.
Love it. We're stubborn.
Yeah. I love the premise of Happy Birthday, Mr. President. You took a very wicked approach to this situation that we know publicly happened, what you did, the aftermath of that. But it's a great way to sort of approach a well-known story is what happened before or after. Mm-hmm. And I'm fascinated by your thought to the aftermath of what that might have looked like after she provocatively say happy birthday to John F. Kennedy. So Lisa, I want to pivot back to you. So similarly to you, I took a hiatus from being in the business because I had a young kid. I worked corporate for 10 years and that sunsetted in June. And then now I'm back into the performing arts as well. And I know you had a similar journey. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what that was like for you, the decision to sort of go on the hiatus and then what brought you back.
Yeah. So basically, I think once I got out of college, there was student debt. I was working in restaurants. I still am. We can't leave. But I was working in restaurants trying to kind of pay off my debts and build my life. It was really hard working all of those hours. So even before I had kids, it was, I was taking kind of a hiatus. I had gotten my headshots done. Um, but I did have my daughter fairly early in my life. So I was like turning 23. So my daughter is 10. Um, and so, you know, being a young mom, I just really immersed myself into motherhood and just, it's very common, especially just talking to other moms and parents in any community, is it's like, you lose a part of yourself in so many ways because you're sacrificing so much and you want so badly to give this child the life they deserve. And so I put all of my energy, excuse me, I put all of my energy into
Okay.
that. I ended up having my son a few years later. So then I had two small kids. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, and then I'd work maybe like 1 or 2 nights a week. Um, and so now both my kids, my daughter's 10 and my son is 6. And one thing I think as parents, I don't know if you feel this way as well, but this kind of new generation of parents, especially millennial parents, my parents, and I don't like saying this, but like boomers, they say it was always the do as I say and not as I do, you know? Um, and I feel like it should be the opposite, right? Do as I do. I mean, please do what I say as well. But leading by example, I think is my biggest part. So now that my kids have gotten
Yeah.
older and they're in school full time, I've been trying to kind of get back in. And this has been like my key phrase for the last like 6 months is I'm really trying to get back into passion and purpose, right? Um, and
Yeah.
so I've been trying to pick up hobbies and different things like going to the gym or I just refinding myself, refinding Lisa because I've gave so much and it's a forever job being a parent, um but
Yes.
I think that there is a big part of me that has kind of been on the back burner, but for good reason, for really amazing and wonderful little people. So, um, how this kind of came about was I did go see both of Michael's productions. Okay. And me and Michael are very, very good and close friends. So I obviously went and supported him. Um, I was there throughout his whole process. And once he started talking about Judy. He had sent me the script to look over. He's like, hey, can you just kind of look this over, give me your opinion, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. So I read through it. Um, and then he was sitting there and he's going through the casting process and auditioning process. And he asked me, he's like, I put out things, I've had some auditions. I'm just not finding what I'm looking for. He goes, "Do you know anybody that would want to audition for this?" And I was on the phone with him in my kitchen and I said, Michael, the only person I can think of is myself. I'm like, I've taken a very long hiatus. I go, Michael, I could possibly entertain this. I'm telling you, I'm looking, Michael has been there through my whole passion and purpose. I'm saying it all the time. My kids are so annoyed. They're always like, we know, Mom, your passion and purpose. So passion and purpose, Mom, we know. So then Michael kind of entertained the idea and he's like, you know what, Lisa, I'm just gonna have you do a cold read tonight and and you can sing a little bit and we'll just see. Um and so we did do a cold read that night. We did a cold read that night and sang a little bit. And yeah, I mean, he just was like, Lisa, I'm really seeing something here. I don't know. And it felt really good to me too. I was like, it was almost like muscle memory where it's like getting back on a bike.
Yeah.
Like I started getting really excited.
Yeah.
So he just said, okay, let's sit with this for a little bit. I'm going to keep auditioning. I'm going to keep doing these things. But then I started getting a little bit obsessed with it. So I started really going through the script. I was like texting Michael all of these notes from all these interviews I was like, oh my gosh, did you see that Judy did this? Did you see Judy did this? And he's like, okay, Lisa, yes, I see this.
Mind you, she wasn't casted yet.
I was not casted yet.
She wasn't casted.
I just got like super obsessed. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to this one. There's so much. It was just, so I started doing these things. And yeah, eventually he had gone through the audition process, and um, he, uh, at first, he was thinking I would be an understudy just because he's like, you've got a lot going on. But then he had auditioned multiple other people, and he kind of, you know, was like, would you want to actually do this? Because I want you. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Passion and purpose, baby.
Passion and
Now,
purpose.
Michael, I got to tell you, I give you a lot of credit because, this is your bestie. You grew up with them and you didn't just say, yeah, the part's yours. You made her do a cold read. You made her sing through it. I mean, that must have been hard. This is your baby and the success of the piece relies heavily on the person playing the leading actress. Was that awkward for you? Or was it just like, no, this is business as usual and yeah, I'm putting egos aside and I'm putting, friendship aside? And I'm curious about that.
So the process was really, I thought at first I when I did the reading with her, I'll just start there. I did the reading with her, and there because there's a scene in the show where it is, Judy and her husband Sid fighting. And Lisa she just dove right into it. And I said, okay, try it this way. And it was just the fact that, like she said, that muscle memory. But for her, it was the fact she could take a note and then apply it and then just do exactly as I, kind of wanted. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went through some other people and, and it was like some good touch and goes. But I think what really came down to it was, you know, again, this is something that is taken very seriously. Judy
Yeah.
Garland, that is like sacred ground, in a lot of entertainment circles and in theater and in, the gay community. So I said, I need someone who's going to take this seriously. And what really, I guess, sealed the deal for me was she was doing it on her own without even me telling her to. She was doing the research. She was doing the training, listening to, the Carnegie Hall records and just doing it on her own. I didn't ask her. I didn't say, hey, this is what you got to do. She was just, it was like there was a work process where I said, oh, she's serious about this. And that's what you want as a director and a producer. You're like, who's going to come in ready to do the work. I tell people I don't do this because I want any kind of fame or money or recognition. I'm like, I love the work of putting a show on. The performances are just the cherry on top, but it's the work, that rehearsal process, putting it together, doing all this. That's the part I love. So see her just right out the gate without even knowing she was playing the part, just start the work. That was what made me go, okay, you know, let's sit down and see if we can make this actually work. And to her credit, and also shout out to her mom, her credit, we found a workable schedule to make it work.
They say that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah,
I think is
yeah,
that
I
how
think
it
it's that.
goes?
Yeah.
So how incredible that you were able to just find the person you needed for the lead in this production. Now we actually have yet to. I'll mention I mentioned the title in the intro. Don't worry, I'll mention it. But we should talk about the name of the piece. Of course, is The Greatest Night in Show Business. Tell us a little bit about what the premise of the show is. We've touched on that it is about Judy Garland, but tell us where she is in her life during the time of the play.
So, kind of like with Happy Birthday, Mr. President, I took a moment, a famous moment in this person in her life, in Judy Garland's life, and it was right before her Carnegie Hall show. Now, why that kind of intrigued me was because, as a Judy Garland fan from the time I was 8, I realized that Carnegie Hall was her last plateau. Like, that was the last peak for her. Because then, unfortunately, 8 years later, she would pass away. So I was like, Carnegie Hall, that must have been nerve-wracking for her. And the one thing I read about was Judy was as the consummate performer she was, she would be nervous before she would go on stage. And so I was like, what was that process like just walking into the again, that's how my brain worked, like walking into that theater, walking into that space. And was she overwhelmed? Was she like, whoa? Was she like, okay, I'm not doing that? Like, so I started right. So when I wrote it, it was literally just of all the things that could potentially of like what would who was there. So I really try to say like, okay, who was there with her? I don't bring in like a random person being like, oh, Mr. Louis D. Mayer comes in and says, "You got it, honey." I'm like, no, he's dead already. By this time, he's already dead. He wouldn't be there. So I wrote it where, people who she was close to at the time, Mort Lindsay, who composed, who did the, orchestration for Carnegie Hall. Her husband, Sid Luft, she was in the process of divorcing. And then we also, another great icon, but when she was only 15, Liza. So I wrote Liza Minnelli into the show. And it's about these people really trying to remind her who she is. And like, no, you're Judy Garland, you got this. And they all share an experience with her. But then when I was writing this, I said, you would be a fool not to do it with music. So I went through the process at first being like, okay, Over the Rainbow, The Man That Got Away. And then when you tried to get the rights to it, then you got an Over the Hill bill that we couldn't afford.
Yep. Yep.
I was like, I can't afford this. But that was the best thing about Judy Garland. She used so much of the American Songbook that I ended up finding that like a good chunk of the Carnegie Hall album is public domain music. So
Oh, how great.
so I ended up redoing some things in the show where I listened to it again. I said, okay, this song can go here, this song can go there. And then I know she did a mashup with Liza years later. So there's some songs that I added to there. I did add a duet between her and Liza, played fabulously by this young actress named Riley Thomas.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
so
My baby.
she's so
My
great.
baby on stage, my baby in real life.
And then I also added a song that Judy Garland never sung, but I was watching the Rosemary Clooney story, and it's this beautiful song called "Easy to Remember but So Hard to Forget," and I wrote that as a song she
Oh,
sings to Sid, and I put that in there as like a song she sings to him, and I was like, I know she never recorded the song, but she should have because it's
Mhm.
so beautiful, and so that made the script, and that's how we got there. The title really is because it is called, the greatest night in show business. So it's a love letter to her and the mark she left on entertainment.
I cannot wait to see this. It sounds so different than any other Judy Garland piece that has been produced to this day. Um, and you've got like people in her life that I don't think, to my knowledge, have been part of any other produced works in our life, and songs that have not been tapped into, and like the one you said she never recorded, that you're interpolating in there. I think it's going to be wonderful and exciting to see a new piece on the subject of Judy Garland. Tell everybody where they can get tickets when you open, what the run dates are, because we don't want to forget to give people that information.
Yeah, so actually tickets are on sale now. We actually this show has been a it's I don't know what to say. Like it's been a weird thing with this show where it's like so many great things have been happening, and I'm like, we're not even in rehearsal yet.
Yeah.
Like something. So we're gonna be at the Greenhouse Theater Center February 6th through the 15th. When we first got those dates, unbeknownst to me, it's Chicago Theater Week. So nerve wracking,
Oh, great.
Yep.
nerve wracking. And I told that to Lisa. I said, now it's Chicago Theater, and she's like, what? But then I said, you signed a contract, so too late. She can't back out of it. But then we also have additional dates in March at the Newport. So it's kind of funny, back at the Newport Theater. And it's kind of funny because when we do this show at the Newport Theater, it'd be officially 1 year since I did Happy Birthday, Mr. President. So
Oh,
so
wow.
it's kind of like full circle where I'm like, okay, I get to come back here 1 year later with another show. So that one's going to be very special, but the tickets are on sale right now. Our Facebook page of the company, HGBIC Productions, and it's on our Facebook page, but we also share a lot of it on our socials. And then I know and you can also find tickets to the show on Eventbrite. So yeah, they've gone live, and I'm really excited share this. We're still in the thick of rehearsals, but we're we understand. I think I have the best crew of actors who understand that this is an occasion they have to rise to. So they're in it. And then fun fact though, before we end it, there's 12 songs in the show, and besides one, Lisa is going to be singing all of them.
Wow, that's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
You ready for the challenge, Lisa?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really funny because this is also part of, again, passion and purpose, is that I have a karaoke machine from my kids. So it's really awesome because if I get off of my day job early, I'm like in my house doing the karaoke. So I am like so ready for it. And it's always in my AirPods, like when I'm at work, when I'm in the car, I'm listening to Judy. Like I told Michael this, I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like immersing myself in this whole like Judy world. And it's so interesting, like he said, because most people know her for the Over the Rainbow Judy, right? And this is a completely different Judy. This is a different time in her life. She's seen so much, she's been through so much, and it's like I'm so honored to even portray her. I'm so excited.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a fantastic show. I'm now even doubly excited that you're going to be back at the venue you did Happy Birthday, Mr. President at. What a nice full circle moment there for you. Of course, our listeners should know that the link for tickets will be in our show notes. So please go back there and you can click on there. It'll bring you straight through to the ticketing site. Any final words that either of you would like to impart before we wrap up?
I guess we're just really, again, thankful for, this opportunity. I was just telling this, I was telling her, I was like, this is my first year really producing, directing. And I'm like, I've been incredibly blessed and lucky so far with how everything has gone. And every day I pinch myself and I'm like, and it's so funny because again, it's kind of like that sense of like, oh God, is this the day where they're like, you're a fraud? But I was something that I guess by show 3, I'm like, oh no, I think I'm in this for the long haul. And so it's just been, really a great year. And I'm so happy that I can bring it home in such an amazing way. So,
Oh yeah, and one thing about Michael too is like he is such a pleasure to work with. I mean, our entire cast we're becoming so close and we have such good connections in and outside of rehearsals. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to work with every single one of them and Michael as a director because we've worked together in high school before, but I've never had him as a director. And he is excellent. He's wonderful to work with. He gives such good and constructive notes. And he's been amazing. Besides just being one of my very best friends, all aside, like we said, our friendship is great, but in the end of the day, this is work. And working with him, whether he was my friend or not, would be amazing. So I'm grateful.
Well, there's no better way to close this episode than with that accolade to Michael. Michael, congratulations on all the great work that you're doing. The Chicago community is really, really lucky to have you here, creating new work for folks and new opportunities for folks. And I wish you all the best with the production and with your future. It's exciting to see.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us at the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago Theater Makers Podcast is a production of Spirit Art LLC, and our podcast theme music is by Paul Langford. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please drop us a note at our website, ChiTheaterMakersPodcast.com. That's ChiTheater, makers with an S, podcast.com. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us as much as we enjoyed spending it with you, and we'll see you on the board soon.